some of the innovation that's going on and talk to people who are either, manufacturing products or working in sustainable cannabis cultivation environments, I would strongly encourage them to come out. In Colorado, in October 17th and 18th this year, we're going to have that symposium. We have a lot of speakers, talking about different aspects of cultivation and sustainability and what they can do with waste, with lighting, with water, and with HVAC systems, as well as waste. I think we have a really well-rounded program. The Sustainability Work Group is also in the process of publishing, and it's due to come out in September of this year, a best practice manual. And again, this is non-regulatory. This is a resource and education materials that we're putting out so that people can learn about different techniques that they can employ. And this is specifically to indoor grows, this first iteration of it. But we want to be seen as a resource, and that other states can follow suit. I know they're doing a lot of progressive sustainability work in Oregon and in Washington, and I imagine that California is going to follow suit just from the consumer demand there. So I think that now is a good time to get involved. You asked me early in the interview about what could people be doing and how could they be doing more, and I think it's we've got to keep moving forward. It's about education. They have to educate themselves. They have to be current and relevant. And at this point, a year in cannabis, it's like dog years, whether it comes to regulation or legality or legislation or products or concentrates and infusion. I mean, everything is just exploding, and as is cultivation standards and techniques.
Yeah, and it's actually a good thing. I mean, we've got 80 years to catch up, from the time that it's been inaccessible to people until now, and it's phenomenal what's happening. Are you by any chance working with Focus, which is the Foundation of Cannabis Unified Standards?
No, actually, the Organic Cannabis Association, we're trying to develop our own organic certification standard, and we're in the process of that now, and we have some proposed legislation on that here in Colorado. Additionally, we already have a clean cannabis certification that we're using that certifies for a pesticide-free product. Right.
Well, the Focus is the acronym for the group. What they're doing is they're collaborating with foreign regulatory bodies and in the U.S. to sort of develop standards across the board for all sorts of things.
We've had lots of discussions with them.
Yeah, that's who I was talking. Okay, yeah, that's why I was wondering, because if you have the book coming out, it'd be probably very useful for them to take advantage of your knowledge and resources as well. And I actually interviewed Leslie Engelking on this show several months ago, but she was right in the throes of pulling together a group of individuals who are sort of a master think tank, if you will, to look into every single aspect of the cannabis industry and start pulling best practices from each segment in order to come up with some universal standards. And I don't recall, who they're talking to about organic growing methods and that sort of thing. So it's interesting. So from your point of view, what would you think would be one of the most important bits of information you could convey to policymakers on a federal level about the cannabis movement in general?
I think I'd go back to the point that I led with, which is that this really needs to be evaluated as its own industry. We are moving at a speed of our innovation that is unheard of in any other new industry that's come on in the past, couple of hundred years. I mean, the fact that we're already at a point now with lighting and HVAC and these systems, I think we're open to it. We're very open to that as an industry, and ultimately, not only are the businesses benefiting, but the consumers are going to benefit. And if they want to talk about the safety and the efficacy of cannabis, how do they ignore its cultivation? And how do they ignore the science and the technology that has been going into its cultivation? And as part of that, naturally, sustainability. But, consumers want to know what they're ingesting. They want to know what's in their cannabis. And we want cannabis to be evaluated on its own merits. We don't want there to be bad press because somebody got sick because what they really were ingesting was a pesticide. We need to have some way to differentiate organic from conventional. And I think that we need a lot of science and research behind cannabis right now. But there's a lot of reluctance, and I know that.
Yeah. Well, I hope the current political environment doesn't prohibit or stall the growth, I should say, because it's really phenomenal what we're learning about cannabis, about the endocannabinoid system, about all of the other, economic, social, and even political and health benefits of making cannabis accessible to the public. And it's just, I'm just in awe every single day when I learn about new miracles, I learn about new scientific studies. I see the prosperity that's happening in the states where it's legal, and how it's not doing any harm. The states that have passed these more liberal laws about cannabis. So and kudos to you. I mean, it seems like you've been on a really good path and setting a great example for people who want to get into this industry. In fact, what would you tell people that are considering entering the industry, either in the retail side or in the growing side?
In general, as advice, prepare to be humbled. No matter what you know about business, the cannabis industry is unlike any other in terms of the pace of growth and the regulation and compliance. And I think that something else I always share with people is don't be afraid to start at the bottom, because if you really have that great of an idea, or if you really want to make that change, you are going to be noticed and you're going to work your way up very quickly. There is still a lot of room in this industry for leadership, but never be afraid to start at the bottom.
Yeah, I think that seems like sage advice. It definitely seems like sage advice. So, well, I'm very I'm looking forward to hearing how it goes with the Sustainability Symposium. Tell me again when that is. It's in October, right?
Yeah, it's in October. It's October 17th and 18th. It's in Denver, Colorado. And it should be, really well received. We had an amazing first year last year, and this year we've extended it to a day and a half, and it piggybacks with a management symposium here in the city of Denver. So it's a great event to make your way to.
Yeah, and it'll be growers, retailers. Will it be mainly a business type of conference, or is it more for like consumer education?
I think right now it is business to business. There is some consumer education in it, and I think consumers can certainly be enlightened at this when they learn about how cultivation happens. But I know that primarily the vendors there and some of the attendees are business to business.
Right. And how often do you get involved politically in Colorado? I mean, the work group, is it a political sort of organization?
So it's put together by the City and County of Denver's Department of Environmental Health. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I guess that you could say that. And I am very active. I participate in industry organizations. I try to keep, just my finger on the pulse of any new legislation that's coming through. I'm very in tune with what's happening with legislation, and as it translates to rulemaking, how that's going to affect us and our store. And then I do a lot of consumer advocacy through my work with Organic Cannabis Association. Again, I really feel like, consumers need to know that what they're learning about cannabis can come from a trusted resource and can come from a non-bias, just educating themselves the same exact way they do about their food, they would to their cannabis.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. And because there is a lot of misinformation that is out there and available to consumers, and I mean, it's an important aspect of the business, I would think. Staying, keeping consumers completely informed about.
Consumers drive the market. They drove the market in grocery stores. Look at McDonald's and the changes they've made to their menus in the past 10 years. That's coming from consumers. It's not coming from regulation and not coming from their own industry. If consumers are aware, and if the education they're getting is not being fed to them from the people trying to sell them the products, then they are going to be able to demand a better product overall. And it's going to just improve the state of the cannabis industry if they do that as it relates to dispensaries and marijuana, whether it's medical or adult use.
Yeah. And on the dispensary level, how do you handle the questions that come in from consumers about strains and that sort of thing? Because there are a lot of people who still have never ventured into medical cannabis to treat whatever ails them. And, I hear from people around here that, often patients are feeling a bit intimidated because they don't really know what they're getting into. They get certified, they know that cannabis can help them, but what do you tell new consumers when they walk in the door?
Well, I think this is really a testament to how we treat our sales associates. We don't call them bud tenders. We call them sales associates because I think bud tender, it almost diminishes the level of education that we expect them to have in all aspects of marijuana. I mean, they're selling flower, they're selling topicals, edibles, drinks, and any number of concentrates. I can barely keep up with the amount of concentrates that we're selling and the amount of information that they're expected to impart. We choose to very well compensate our sales associates and to provide them with insurance as at least a stipend for that as best we can. We want this to be a solid workplace for them where they feel like they can really hone in on their own education as it relates to cannabis. They are the bridge between a first-time user and the experience that person is going to have with cannabis. They need to listen and they need to ask the right questions. And, then formulate a suggestion. And again, it's just a suggestion based on their own anecdotal experience in their years of working with cannabis. We are, giving them an incredible amount of responsibility when they're talking to our clients. And I think that our clients recognize that. We try to support what it is that the client is seeking and not just the recommendation that some bud tender might make for this customer. That's why as sales associates, they really have to hear and listen to what the client's needs are and then try to meet those needs. I'd always rather the client come back wanting more, wanting something stronger or different, ready to take a leap into something that they're a little bit more timid about, than us, if you will, over-prescribe or over-suggest to them something that scares them off. Yeah. And I think as far as, a connoisseur walking through our door, well, every single one of our sales team, they're just, they know so much that they can, have an enlightened conversation and go really deep into all the different terpene profiles and cannabinoid profiles, while at this, same time or moments before, just very basically describing sativa, indica, hybrids, testing profiles and to a novice consumer.
Right.
So it's a real testament to our staff.
Yeah. Well, in a way, they have to be knowledgeable enough to serve almost as pharmacists.
Yes. Yeah.
And I imagine
yet they're underutilized and they're undereducated and their lack of training. And until the demand from the consumer is, I want them to have this, breadth of information available to me, the consumers are going to drive just how much dispensaries are investing in their team.
I imagine, and maybe you'll agree, I don't know, but I imagine that down the road, the sales associate role will ultimately be filled by medical professionals who who get training in the endocannabinoid system and